Bradley. I just want to give you a quick demonstration of how just how my front end framework actually works before I kind of show you how it's being used in my web app. So let's go ahead and get started. Ignore this top and bottom sections of this these demos for a second. Those are just stuff to explain this file and what it's doing. I'm going to tell you right now, anyways. So right now, the real content we care about is just from here to here. So we got, say we have a website, and it's kind of like a letterhead, and we've got some information we want to insert to this based off now whatever user is currently logged in. So this letter would say, "Dear prefix last name," so this would be "Dear Mr. Vieira. It has come to my attention that you are in need of assistance. I need you to confirm the following address information." So then have your first name and last name, and then your address, and then sincerely, and then whoever this letter is coming from. So I'm going to show you how my framework makes this easy to associate this data and insert this to make this web page dynamic. So let's go ahead and open up that file real quick. So here it is. It's called demo1.html. And I'll kind of just scroll down because where we need to start is the JavaScript. And so to use my framework, we went ahead and we included it up here with spa.js. And then we come down here, and the first thing we need to do is create an instance of my framework. It has some optional parameters, but we won't get into that. The next, what we'll do is we'll create a model. And this again has more optional parameters, but we're not going to use this. So we don't pass parameters in here. It's going to create a default model. Its name is just going to be an empty string. And the reason we need to bind a model is because we need to tell our framework which objects that it's going to maintain and know to sync back and forth between our HTML document. And now when we make changes, we want to make sure to make changes to that model that is returned when we bind data. So another way we could call this is we could pass it in here, and then we can also, tell it the name of it. And so that's doing the exact same thing. So it's the default values it's going to use to bind that model. We couldn't then say if we pass in an object. So if we did var, we did data equals, a new empty string object like this, and then we could pass in data like so. But if we made changes directly to data, it wouldn't update our model and change our HTML page, because this bind model property returns this specific Java object for this data called a proxy. And so we make changes and set values on that proxy, it will know to then go ahead and update our document. So anytime we make changes to our data that's going to be reflected in our application, we need to make sure we enact on that model that's returned from us binding that data. So again, we set up here, we have some basic stuff. So we have, we want to insert our prefix, the last name, the first name, and address, and the sender. So go to our model, and we go ahead and we add that prefix, our first name, last name, address, and sender. So if we want to now go ahead and insert that data into our HTML document, how do we do that? So the way this will work is kind of off an observer model pattern. So basically we tell our HTML elements using attributes what we want to look for when making changes to our HTML. So the first thing we need to do is when we have an HTML element that wants to respond to data changes in our framework, we need to specify that model by saying spa-model as our attribute. And then inside here for our value, we want to make sure we put the name of the model. Because we're using that default model, again, it doesn't have an actual name, so we just put the empty string here. And then next, we need to tell it what we want to do based off of that model. So what we're going to do is we're going to type spa-prop, and what this says is we want to change a property of this HTML element based off a change on the model. So the first value that we're going to do here is we're going to type the name of the object of the model property that we want to be looking for a change in. So that's prefix, because we're going to insert the prefix name for our user. And then we're going to do a space, and so all the different arguments for the attributes for our framework are going to be separated by spaces. So it's pretty simple to see exactly what's happening. So the second argument we're going to need is going to be the property of the HTML element we want to change. Because we're using a span, we want to change that inner text to reflect the value of the name of our prefix. And that's basically what we're just going to do for all these fields. We have first name, address, and all of those. It's because we're going to have a paragraph here for each of the different sections of our letter, and then we're going to use a span to basically inject those custom values where we need to inside of our HTML documents. So if we go back now to our HTML, how come we don't see those values for Mr. and all of that and John? That's because we haven't told our framework to actually start running. So you can actually create an instance of our framework without actually having it run, and we can also tell it to stop as well. So I'm going to go ahead and tell it to start, and then you'll see it magically go ahead and update these values with what we have. And the way this works is our framework binds kind of in two different ways. So if we make changes to our models, then we'll automatically go and update our HTML document if it needs to. Likewise, if our HTML document changes, it will then go back to our models and make sure that anything that's new or changed has been updated as well. So I'm going to show you the first example by changing our model. So we already have our model here. So if I want to change this address to something else like, I don't know, 546 here, you'll see that it automatically went ahead and updated our address information here as well. And sometimes there may be a situation you don't want to keep updating this data. So I'm going to say, so right now I've told this sender information to not change. And just to prove that does work, I'm going to say right here, model and sender, and we're going to change this sender to me. But you'll see it didn't actually update here. And the reason why that happens is if you go and look at this span right here, I added an attribute called spa-static. And what this does, it says, hey, once we've inserted some HTML and we've bound data to it, we don't want to update this anymore, even if data changes. So by default, spa-static will be null or false for that value, and it's not going to make any changes to that value. So if we do want this to start getting data back again or whatever, we can change this. We can either remove this attribute or we can set it back to false. So now let's demonstrate that other way. If our HTML document changes, that it's going to update with data if it now can have data be bound to it. So we're going to change this now back to false. And you'll see it went ahead and bound data to it. So it bounded the news value of me to there. And then it also went ahead and updated that attribute to reflect true, so let it know that it's no longer going to react on any more data changes. So this is the basic idea of how this framework works. I'm going to do another video that's going to show you some more demos real quick that's going to demonstrate some more of the features. And after that, I'll do a third and final video just showing you how I actually used it in my application.